Welcome to the video edition of NetFront Presence. I'm Jeff Gordon of the Post-Dispatch. We're joined by Jim Thomas and Tom Timmermann. We look back on a disappointing ending to a disappointing season, which followed a disappointing trip to bubble hockey. So, JT, first up, just look back at the series that was against the Colorado Avalanche. Some good stretches in there for the Blues, but certainly not a competitive series. The Blues were shorthanded. The Avalanche were in fine form. And it just really wasn't much of a contest.
No, it wasn't. And it's amazing how much Colorado has just zoomed by the Blues in a year's time. I mean, let's go back a year, and the Blues finished ahead of Colorado, just barely, but they finished ahead of them. And now it's not even close. Now, you take away the 300 empty net goals that Colorado had, and there were 2 one-goal games in there, basically. Besides as many other talents, Nathan McKinnon's a fantastic cherry picker, getting those empty net goals. But no, they weren't competitive, and as dazzling as Colorado's speed was, their work in front of the net, they had several deflections in the series, was really troublesome for the Blues. So they not only did they outskate the Blues, but they outmuscled them in front of the net. And to me, that second part about the Blues defense's inability to clear out the net, at least occasionally, I think that's should be as much of a concern for Berube and Armstrong as anything.
Now, Tom, when you look back at the entirety of it, it's you go back to bubble hockey. The Blues did not respond well in bubble hockey. The COVID disruption prevented them from operating as normal. It was an abnormal offseason, abnormal preparation for camp, abnormal camp. And then, injuries and absences. It's just a constant flux of the roster and lineup. And you really, until the last few weeks of the season, Tom, we really didn't get a good look at who the Blues could be.
No, and what's weird when you look at how badly they did in the bubble, it'd be one thing if they had been this great home ice team and then deprived of their fans, they couldn't go. But they haven't been a good home team of late. And so it really shouldn't have mattered, you would think, playing in isolation as they did for much of the year. But, right from the start, I mean, the Blues basically didn't have the full team basically all season. I mean, Hoffman missed the opening game because of visa issues. He didn't have it yet. And then Bortuzzo gets hurt early on in game 2. And from there, it just started going and it didn't stop. So they never found who they were. When they got guys in, when they found their identity, then players started coming back and they had to find it all over again. So they just never were the team they could have been. Now, but I gotta say, even if they were there all year long, this team is, I think, even at full health, not as good as Colorado, not as good as Vegas. I mean, they were at best the third team, and we saw they did well against Minnesota, but clearly not one of the top 2 teams in this division.
Well, JT, on a positive note, there were a handful of guys cited by Doug Armstrong as guys that played pretty well, played to their ability. David Perron, Ryan O'Reilly, and Justin Falk with a great bounce back year. So at least there was that. Not everybody could hold their head and had to hold their head in shame after the season.
Yeah, but not many. It was surprising that he named only 3 players. That those guys can feel good about their season, and everybody else, no. And he included Berube and Berube's staff, and he included himself in that large category that needed to be better. But yeah, I mean, O'Reilly and Perron are the bedrock of the team. You could argue that Perron had a career year. He certainly did in terms of points per game. And I don't think we should diminish what Ryan O'Reilly did because he just was like ambushed in the playoffs. I think he missed Perron, maybe more than any of us could even have anticipated. But you go back to that, what was it, April 24th or 26th, the game where they were down 2-0, and he makes that tremendous play, stripping McKinnon and then firing the puck, as it turned out, off the skate of Devin Tays, or the body of Devin Tays, and into the net to fuel the rally. So you have those 2 guys. And then Justin Falk had had a great bounce back season. I said many times last year he didn't look like a 3-time All-Star defenseman, and he was pretty close to an All-Star defenseman this year. Logged tremendous amounts of minutes during the playoff push when they had some injuries to the decor. Rediscovered his offense in an 82 game season. He would have had 10 or 11 goals. And so you just wonder, actually Falk's renaissance this year probably helps Torrey Krug in the evaluation, that maybe the second time through he'll be much better.
And, Tom, the other positive you could take from the season is that circumstances forced them to play more young players probably than they anticipate, particularly on the blue line. Up front, Jordan Kyrou took a big step, but maybe the most encouraging thing was a couple of young D-men played and gave the management team something to think about.
Clearly more of Nico Mikkola and more of Jake Wallman than we could have envisioned seeing. And Wallman, I think, made a pretty good case that, he's still learning, but he could play at this level. Mikkola was accepted because we'd seen a bit of him before, and he kind of showed that he can do that too. Both obviously need more experience, need more seasoning. Wallman's still prone to get himself into awkward positions when he goes forward and giving up the puck. Also, who would have thought? I mean, no one would have thought we'd see Dakota Joshua. I mean, here was talk about coming out of left field. The fact that he played as much as he did and said, he's not going to be a top 6 guy, and he's probably a 4th line guy. But, here was a guy that did not figure on anyone's radar this year. And now you got to think, okay, Dakota Joshua is someone that can, especially as guys like McEachern maybe, at some point are going to have to move on. There's a guy that can give you some time.
Well, it's going to be an interesting off season, and you should stay tuned to stltoday.com for all the great work that Jim Thomas and Tom Timmermann will do, covering which should be a very busy summer for this hockey team as it tries to get back to where it wants to be. Until next time, I'm Jeff Gordon. We'll see you later.